Hello class, this is Environmental Management 501, Presentation 3, Actions and Strategies by Kevin Eskay on November 8th, 2019. The topic is Actions and Strategies for Improving the Quality and Availability of Oregon's Coastal Food Supply through Local Institutions. With this, the aim is to create methods that better help to supply this area with food staples and give better access to food that already exists in the area, but has a limit on availability, especially in regards to disadvantaged and homeless individuals who are estimated to reach 4.5% of the U.S. total homeless population within Oregon. Easier access to food products limits food scarcity, which ultimately can help lead to lowering numbers of disadvantaged individuals. The vision statement is providing quality food to improve the quality of life for everyone in Oregon's coastal ecosystem. Management alternatives include providing access to quality food products by further developing local food institutions and opening up routes of distribution for easier access in general. Essentially, both of these routes open up pathways towards access to food, but are separated on the grounds that certain food products already exist in this area versus shipped forms of food supply. As Opfer describes, the southern coast containing many rural areas is food deserts, dealing locally with the problem of providing the quantity and quality of food for all individuals is of key importance. In Lowe's article, they mention how small-scale food producers, such as small local farmers, dominate in direct-to-consumer sales, but ultimately suffer due to larger food production units' access to intermediary markets that allow information on their food products to be more readily used and therefore purchased from. Larger farms and food production plants overall dominate this market, with large farms bringing in 93% of the value from intermediary markets, while accounting for only 5% of the total farms in the area. For comparison, median farms account for 14% of the food sales, while small farms account for 81% of local food sales. Local sales end up being around 3 times smaller in profit than larger farms that use intermediary methods. Information is key to providing access to food supplies, which is why larger companies can afford to put in earnings that allow people to know where and how to purchase their food. Even at the expense of limiting accessibility, local suppliers have an easier time accessing this area, but can only account for a small portion of the food supply, which is needed to alleviate food insecurity. Opfer again goes on to describe how this rural area limits access to food, creating food deserts, which is certain things like needing to be within walking distance of food, since low car ownership limits availability to easily accessible food ports. Larger food production suppliers can grant access more easily to these harder-off areas, or at least provide information of easiest access points of food, even if government stipends are required to help offset the cost. Success criteria revolves around the main points of ensuring that individuals most in need of accessing food have the ability to, therefore lowering the vulnerability of locals due to rural conditioning and food deserts, while paying specific attention to the homeless in the area that requires effort from legislators, shelters, and food bank providers. The ultimate goal is to limit food scarcity by creating an available, open market for food insecure individuals, whether they are homeless or just in need. Having open areas such as food banks that supply free food, or direct-to-consumer sales that provide local, cheap food products aimed to fulfill community needs that enable locals to feel welcomed and at ease in their own communities. Secondly, working with legislators on the state and local levels is imperative to not only create means of access to food supplies, but ultimately to safe and efficient means of distributing food. Thank you very much for your time, and if you have any questions on the presentation, feel free to reach out. The following references were used during this presentation.